إله إلا الله
أشهد أن لا إله إلا
أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله أشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح حي على الفلاح الله أكبر الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
Assalamu alaikum, brothers and sisters. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. On this day, Jumma, the 5th of Rajab, 1444, all praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. We thank Him, we seek His aid, we ask His forgiveness, and we seek His guidance. And we believe in Him, and we do not deny Him, and reject those who reject belief in Him. We bear witness that there is no one worthy of worship other than Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala alone, without partner. And that Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam is a certain messenger who He sent with a guidance, a true deen, a light and an advice. After a long gap of time when no messengers were sent, knowledge was little, people were misguided, time appeared to have stopped as the day of judgment approached. Dear Muslims, today, inshallah, the subject of our khutba is ambition. And ambition is another way of saying that is what are you striving for? What is it that you want to come into fruition at some point in the future? So today, inshallah, we'll talk a little bit about that. But as we all know, everything starts with the niyyah. You know, if you oversleep in the morning and don't make fajr, it's probably because your niyyah the night before wasn't to wake up on time. Right? And we know that if you have little sleep, but if you make the proper niyyah that you want to wake up in the morning on time, then you'll wake up in the morning on time. So we know that everything starts with your niyyah. So a question that I ask everybody today: would you wish that America was an Islamic state? How many of you have thought about what that means? If the United States was a truly Islamic state, based on Islamic principles. You know, they say that the founders of America were all Christians or deists, and that a lot of the principles that they laid down in the Constitution come from Christianity. Right? Now we have many Muslims who are satisfied with being Christians. What do I mean by that? Well, the Christians worship one day a week, and we have many Muslims who are satisfied worshiping one day a week. They'll come to Jumma. They're emulating who? The Christians. Islam says that you come to men unless you have some obligation that keeps you from the Masjid, that you try to make all of your salah in the masjid. And a lot of people wonder why that is. Because in the masjid, you can solve a lot of your problems. Your brother may have a little information, or your sister may have some information that may help you solve your problems. But if you don't come to the masjid, then you end up having to solve your problems alone, by yourself, in isolation, in most cases. So, fellow Muslims, I say today our subject of our khutbah is ambition. What are you striving for? This weekend we'll have a meeting in Salisbury about an Islamic school. And I ask all of you who are interested to attend this meeting. I think it's Jumma Ahad, around Doha time. I think we make Doha and then they have the meeting. So all of you who are interested in an Islamic school or starting an Islamic school or having your kids have an Islamic education, I strongly encourage you to attend the meeting. Don't depend on getting the information secondhand. See? Go there yourself, and if it's something that you know that can contribute to bringing this into fruition, if it is your ambition to have your children taught based on Islamic principles, then come to the meeting at the Salisbury Masjid, inshallah. So fellow Muslims, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala for everything that we do. We'll be held accountable for, and each soul is going to end at a prescribed time. And you will be dealt with according to your deeds. All praise is due to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, the Rabb of the worlds. And may his peace and blessings be upon the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, his household, and his companions. Many of us should ask, why do we send our blessings on the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam so much? As a person who wasn't born in an Islamic country, this was kind of a foreign concept to me. Every time you say his name, you're supposed to say peace and blessings be upon him. Why is that? This goes back to the original statement that I made, that he brought a pure deen, a pure way of life. This is the reason why we send our salutations on the Prophet Muhammad. Because the way of life that he brought is superior to all other ways of life. So I ask you again, how many people wish that America was an Islamic country? And what will we do to make that happen if that's your wish? Or do you actually think that America as it exists today is better than any Islamic country? Do your research. Would an Islamic country have 100,000 people dying every year of opioids? The Quran says that intoxicants and gambling, there's some good in it, but there's more bad than good. Just based on logic, you would stay away from those types of things. You wouldn't seek out salvation through drugs. See? You seek out salvation through salah, by appealing to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. This is what Islam says. So dear Muslims, the greatest blessing that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala bestowed on mankind is the sending of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam with a pure deen that brings all that is good to mankind and protects them from all that is evil through his principles of justice, brotherhood, freedom, and peace. We say that every week, but what does that really mean? That Islam brought justice. Islam brought brotherhood. Islam brought freedom. Islam brought peace. What does that mean? If you study early Islamic history, you know that those guys did a lot of fighting. But why did they fight? Did they fight to secure riches? For all I know, Umar, who was the leading character in the spread of Islam, he was afraid of riches. When they brought some of the riches from Persia back to Islam, to Medina, he made a dua that says, keep me away from this. Keep me away from these riches. because he knew that that would stain human character. So when you have so much riches and wealth, most people have a difficult time sharing their wealth with other people, right? And most people, and then you have another group of people whose ambition is to take other people's wealth, right, without actually earning it, steal it, some kind of way through some type of scam. So brothers and sisters in faith, fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and be dutiful to him. Always be conscious of him and know that you will meet Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and that he will compensate every soul for what it has earned on that day and that no soul will be treated unjustly. How many people actually believe that? Are we going to be judged by Allah? And everything that we've done, we're going to be held accountable for? And Allah is not going to treat us unjustly? How many people believe that? Or do you believe the promises of the dunya? Right? Which one do you believe? The message that you just received on Facebook, or the message that you received on Twitter, or the Instagram that you received? Which one do you think is better? The promise of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, or the promise that you received this morning on Twitter or on WhatsApp or whatever kind of technology you use today? Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in the Quran, in the English translation, so whoever does an atom's weight of good will see it, and whoever does an atom's weight of evil will see it. Whatever you've done, you're going to see it. You know, that's pretty tough when you get your book. We just hope that we all get our book in our, in our right hand, right? And that we don't get our book behind our back, try to get away from our book. Fellow Muslims, man's aspiration to obtain high ranks and degrees of virtue and his efforts towards achieving perfection in his deen is clear evidence of a sound mind and fine intellect. This is the evidence, right? Trying to perfect your deen. That's the best evidence you can get that you have a sound mind and intelligence. It is also a sign of his entitlement to all that is good in this dunya as well as in the next life. Such a man rises above the standard low-minded people, those who have no will to aim high. You know, you got a lot of people who's content with where they are. When you come and talk to them and say, hey, man, maybe you should improve yourself, they say, no, I'm satisfied with what I'm doing. You challenge them to do things differently, and they look at you as if you just cursed them out. I have a lot of people who are like that. I myself, from time to time, wonder, am I like that? My inability to, so far to learn the language of the Quran. Is that because I'm 67 years old, or is that because of my own arrogance and complacency with what I think I already know? You have to ask yourself, what is holding you back from a better understanding of this deen? Do you think that the life in the dunya that you've already accomplished is good enough? Or do you think that you should strive, right, for the path that is steep? As they say in the 92nd Surah, what will tell you the path that is steep? To free a slave. Now we know that a lot of people came here as former slaves. And when you think about it, you say, well, the Muslims was in charge of Spain, the Spanish. They're the ones who led the slave trade. Well, the Muslims was in charge of Portugal, that part of what they call the Iberian Peninsula. And the Muslims were in charge of Africa and many parts of Africa, right? But what did they do? They involved themselves in the slave trade. They blinded themselves to what the Jahiliyyah people, the ignorant people, the Europeans would do to these, they said it was 10 to 12 million people. Probably 1 or 2 million of them died on the way here to America. Now you brothers came here a little bit later. My question to you is, what did you bring? Did you bring Islam? Or are you bringing another form of Jahiliyyah? Dressed up, you know, in nice ways of speaking. You know, to say Assalamu alaikum is a much superior way of speaking. I ask my students, and I ask anybody, what is the best greeting that you could give a person? You know, what's up? How you doing? What's happening? Or any other slang that the little brothers in the back have been introduced to in their school. What is the best greeting that you could give another human being? Right? And then I asked this young lady, she works at this restaurant. She's not a Muslim. I asked her, what's the best greeting? I said, you have to greet people all the time when they come into your restaurant. What's the best greeting? And when she reflected on it, she said, Assalamu alaikum. This is the best greeting that you can greet. This is part of the deen of Islam. And what's the response? Wa alaikum assalam. And this is the best response that you can give a human being. Why? Because when we look around the dunya, is the world at peace? Is there peace in Europe? Is there peace in Africa? Is there peace in America? Well, guy went into, you know, they go to the nightclub. They tell you that's the place to go, right? So the guy went into the nightclub, right? 70 years old. Can you imagine that? A 70-year-old man ain't got nothing better to do with his time than be going to a nightclub. He goes into a nightclub, and for some reason, he decides he's going to take a couple people out. This is what they teach you here in America. 70 years old. He hasn't learned yet. Instead of going to a nightclub, he should have went into a mosque and taken off his shoes, right? And made wudu. And if he had a problem, he should have taken it to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. But no, not in America. They said the Second Amendment overrides all your rights. The rights to bear arms, right? Would that be in the deen of Islam? The right to kill another person is superior to all rights? So I ask you brothers, which deen is superior? Is Islam or is the American way of life? I was talking to a professor, a friend of mine down Florida A&M this morning about, you know, the simulation that I use and how I explain to my students how all of those people got on opioids in the Midwest. See, because they used to be able to work in a manufacturing facility, right? Come out of high school, work overtime and make a pretty good living. $70,000, $80,000, $90,000 a year with a high school education. But when the automation came, right, they said, well, look, we need to automate. They were part of unions, and the union didn't want them to automate because that means you lose people. So what was the solution? They took the plant to Mexico. They took the plant to China. Because in China, they're meeting with one person who leads the country. And they say to him, we want to bring our plant to China. And the Chinese said, bring it over here. We got a whole bunch of people that will work for you for $1 an hour. So they saved money on labor, and they were able to implement the automation that they wanted at the same time. But they made a deal with the Chinese. What happened? The Chinese learned how to make the technology, and then they learned how to do what they did, and they started selling knockoffs of those products. And now we want to go to war with the Chinese, right? Because we say that they stole our intellectual property. And everybody that knew in the 80s, when they did that, that was going to be one of the results. But what is one of our major industries in the United States? It's the military-industrial complex. President Eisenhower warned us against the military-industrial complex. And why is it so important? Because when they get mad with the Chinese, we got to build more ships and more planes and those companies that support those ships and plane manufacturers, they're going to make a lot of money. And they're going to get you to be mad at the Chinese, right? The Asian Americans are being attacked because the people don't discriminate between the Chinese or Korean, right? They don't know. An ignorant person doesn't know the difference between the Chinese. They hear people talking a foreign language. They look at them and say, this is a Chinese guy. So they're ready to go to the place and try to kill me some Chinese. And they don't even know they were being manipulated. Which deen is better? The deen that says, right, trust in Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. The deen that says, do what's right, even if it's against your own self. See? Even if it's against your brother, or your sister, or your mother, or your father, don't make any difference. If it comes down to doing what's right, the deen of Islam says, do what's right, even if it's against your own self. What is your ambition for this country? Did you study its history? Before you came here, it had a history of 300 years. How many of you studied the history of America before you came? Does America need the deen of Islam, or is it okay the way it's going? If it keeps going like this, another 50, 100 years, what will it look like? When 100,000 people a year die from opioids because they can't deal with the problems here in America, right? When you go to certain neighborhoods and certain inner cities, the so-called black people are killing their own people. Spraying their kids, they don't care who they kill. All so that they can, be in control of their neighborhood. Now you brothers are dark skinned, and pretty soon you'll lose your Arabic, that little, accent. What happens when you lose your Arabic accent and you talk just like all of the rest of the black people here in America? Will you adopt their ways? Right? And what will you do? Ask yourself, what is your ambition? Or will you teach those so-called black people Arabic and give them the deen that we should have gave to them 300 years ago? See? What is your ambition for America? What ambition do you have? What is it that you're striving for? In some of your countries, they support leaders who won't allow you to practice your deen. And I'm sympathetic to that. They got leaders in some countries who call themselves Muslims, but, they're about as far away from Islam as you can get. And I know that many of you brothers left those countries and came here. Right? This is the truth. There are many Muslim lands, right? Lands which have Muslims, but they're not lands which have Islam. Right? We know that. And we're sympathetic for the fact that you had to leave your country. But many of us who came here 300 years ago on slave ships packed so thick you couldn't move your arm, right? This is Black History Month, so let's talk about it, right? We know what it's like, to be ripped from your country. We know what that's like. And we know what it's like to have to leave for whatever reason. So what is your ambition? So I ask each of us to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to assess ourselves and to assess our ambition. Alhamdulillah, Alhamdulillah, Rabbil Alameen. So again, we're having a meeting on Jumma in the Salisbury Masjid, talking about an Islamic school. And I encourage everyone who has an interest in getting an Islamic school to attend the meeting, to show your enthusiasm, so that the people that are in charge will take that enthusiasm and try to put it in place. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says in Surah An-Nas, in the English translation, and do not wish for that which Allah has made some to exceed others. For men there is a share of what they earn, and for women there is a share of what they earn. And ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala of his bounty. And indeed Allah is ever over all things a witness. So, what is that? What's the message there? The message that if we want something, ask Allah. Don't be envious of your brother. Allah has given that individual what he has given them. You know, ask Allah. And you may not get it immediately, and you may not get it in the form that you think you want it, but if you continue to ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, you'll get it. And the only time when you won't get it from Allah is when you decide to stop asking. When won't you get it from Allah is when you decide, class is over. Brothers and sisters in Islam, some people think that the prohibition on envying other people, as quoted in this verse, is contrary to what the Prophet Muhammad says. It's reported in Al-Bukhari. There should be no jealousy except in two things. A man that is endowed with knowledge of the Quran and who recites it in the day and night, while his neighbor of his hears this and says, I wish that I was endowed with the same as that which so-and-so is endowed, so that I could do what he does. That's one type of person. And the man who Allah has blessed with wealth, who spends it in his cause, while another man observes this and says, how I wish that I was blessed with what so-and-so is blessed with, so that I could do what he does. So these are the only times that we should show some type of envy of another person. It's because they're doing something fi sabilillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. They're not learning things to show you how much I know and you don't know. They're learning things to help people learn about this deen. They're not amassing wealth to make themselves look better than another person. They're amassing wealth fi sabilillah subhanahu wa ta'ala. These are the only two types of people that we should envy. The fact of the matter is there is no distinction between the verse and the hadith. That is, jealousy mentioned in the hadith is a positive nature. It actually is just a yearning for the like of the Blessed One has. This is a lawful and not forbidden. What is forbidden in the verse is wishing to have the same blessing, whilst at the same time wanting to be withdrawn from the person who already has it. So you want something, but you want to take it away from that person. Ambition, brothers and sisters, and that's something that is important to have. You have to have ambition. You have to strive for something. So what are we striving for here in Princess Anne? So again, I encourage all of you who are striving for an Islamic school or Islamic school system to attend the meeting this Jumma Ahad, inshallah, at the Salisbury Mosque. Show that you have an interest. Show that it makes a difference, right? Encourage the brothers who are working on it and the sisters who are working on it to work a little harder than they might ordinarily work. They might pick their pace up a little bit if they really know that people are excited. So when you get a survey asking, how many kids you have and how old they are, don't just throw it in the trash can. Fill it out. Don't be afraid that somebody's surveying you so that they can, tell the FBI, the CIA. Those people have their own independent ways of knowing about you. This is not for their purpose. It is for our purpose to understand what the community's needs are so that we can help fulfill those needs. You know, throw away your fear. That's the other thing. You can't realize your ambition if you're afraid. See, we say fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, and that's it. No other man, no other woman do we fear. We only fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And if you find yourself being afraid of something else, right, then maybe you need to make a couple of rakats and ask Allah to strengthen you. You know, from deja, from whatever it is you're afraid of. So I end this khutbah today and ask us here in Princess Anne to look at what is our ambition. What are we striving for as a ummah here in Princess Anne? What things do we want to come into fruition? Right? We can only have those things come into fruition if we're willing to work together as one ummah, not little groups. If you have a good idea, share it with the community. Share it with the whole ummah, and maybe we can implement those good ideas. So we all should therefore fear Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala and hold fast to the guidance of the Quran and the Sunnah, in order that we may be a one amongst the prosperous ones. Because as we know, the Muslims won't prosper by emulating who? The non-believers. We treat our deen the way they treat their deen. Once a week, you go to church. We'll find our masjids as empty as their churches. It's only a matter of time. Going through the motions, and sometimes even going through the motions won't satisfy you. So if you want to get a higher level of satisfaction, then you have to implement the deen as it should be implemented. But if you want to just go through the motions, if we're around 50 years from now, 100 years from now, do your own comparison and see what the ummah looks like. Will it look like the Christians here in Princess Anne? You know, one of the guys in charge over there saw us one night, and he complimented us on the fact of so many young people coming to the masjid. Because over there, the only people that go to church are the elderly. They have no young people. See, here we got a whole bunch of young brothers, right? And I'm looking to these young brothers, right, and sisters. Y'all gonna have to step your game up, right? You see what's going on, right? And you're gonna have to choose what's the right thing to do. Because Islam is going to be implemented through the young. Most of the people that followed the Prophet Muhammad ﷺ was young. Older people think they have too much what? To lose. The Quraysh, the people that were in charge, the people that were most reluctant to change, was who? Were the elders of the community. So when you see someone like me with long gray hair on their face, you know, it's hard to change that guy. Because he feels that he knows. So I'm appealing to the young people. Learn about this deen. See? You see your African American brothers and sisters that you've thrown in that group. Those people are lost. They don't know what to do. They tattoo this arm one week, tattoo their shoulder the next week, and tattoo their leg the next week. Right? This is what they do. They don't know what to do with themselves. They've taken something that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala gave them in perfection and thinking that they can improve it. Right? You got men thinking they should be women, and men thinking they should be, women thinking they should be men, and men thinking they should be women. Because they don't know what to do with themselves. See? They have no deen. They have nothing. And if you follow them, you'll have nothing. They have no deen. They have no parameters around their life. They have no way of judging right from wrong. They have no criteria you have a criteria. The book of Allah is called the criteria. The salat that you make when you say Al-Fatiha, you're asking for guidance, and the other 113 surahs is providing that guidance. They have no guidance. And if you follow them, right, it's going to lead you to destruction here in the dunya as well as the next life. So I ask us all to pray to Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala that He'll help us understand this deen. Amen. I ask us all to pray for the young people. Amen. That they may understand this deen. Amen. I ask us all to participate, right, in establishing an Islamic school here in Princess Anne. Amen. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala guide us to His mercy. Amen. Amen.
إن شاء الله.
الله أكبر الله أكبر أشهد أن لا إله إلا الله وأشهد أن محمدا رسول الله حي على الصلاة حي على الفلاح قد قامت الصلاة قد قامت الصلاة الله أكبر لا إله إلا الله
لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم.
So, brother, inshallah, after the Jumma, I'm going to establish Salat al-Qaid for brother Amir. So don't leave, inshallah. استووا واعتدلوا. اللهم ربنا أحسن وقوفنا بين يديك يا الله. الله أكبر.
الله أكبر.
بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. آمن الرسول بما أنزل إليه من ربه والمؤمنون كل آمن بالله وملائكته وكتبه ورسله لا نفرق بين أحد من رسله وقالوا سمعنا وأطعنا غفرانك ربنا وإليك المصير. لا يكلف الله نفسا إلا وسعها لها ما كسبت وعليها ما اكتسبت ربنا لا تؤاخذنا إن نسينا أو أخطأنا ربنا ولا تحمل علينا إصرا كما حملته على الذين من قبلنا ربنا ولا تحملنا ما لا طاقة لنا به واعف عنا واغفر لنا وارحمنا أنت مولانا فانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم الحمد لله رب العالمين الرحمن الرحيم مالك يوم الدين إياك نعبد وإياك نستعين اهدنا الصراط المستقيم صراط الذين أنعمت عليهم غير المغضوب عليهم ولا الضالين آمين. بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم ألم تر كيف فعل ربك بأصحاب الفيل ألم يجعل كيدهم في تضليل وأرسل عليهم طيرا أبابيل ترميهم بحجارة من سجيل فجعلهم كعصف مأكول. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. سمع الله لمن حمده. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا وتب علينا يا الله. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا وتب علينا يا الله. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا وتب علينا يا الله. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. لا إله إلا الله وحده لا شريك له، له الملك وله الحمد، يحيي ويميت وهو حي لا يموت، بيده الخير وهو على كل شيء قدير وبالإجابة جدير. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه وسلم تسليما كثيرا. اللهم ربنا فاطر السماوات والأرض، أنت ولينا في الدنيا والآخرة، توفنا مسلمين وألحقنا بالصالحين. ربنا هب لنا حكما وألحقنا بالصالحين. اللهم إنك تعلم سرنا وعلانيتنا فاقبل معذرتنا، وتعلم حاجتنا فاعطنا سؤلنا، وتعلم ما في نفوسنا فاغفر لنا ذنوبنا. اللهم إنا نسألك إيمانا يباشر قلوبنا، ويقينا صادقا حتى نعلم أنه لن يصيبنا إلا ما كتبته علينا، والرضا بما قسمته لنا يا هذا الجلال والإكرام. اللهم ربنا اغفر لنا ذنوبنا وإسرافنا في أمرنا، وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وثبت أقدامنا وانصرنا على القوم الكافرين. ربنا أفرغ علينا صبرا وتوفنا مسلمين. اللهم ربنا أوزعنا أن نشكر نعمتك التي أنعمت علينا وعلى والدينا، وأن نعمل صالحا ترضاه، وأصلح لنا في ذرياتنا إنا تبنا إليك وإنا من المسلمين. اللهم ربنا أصلح لنا في ذرياتنا وبارك فيهم وحولهم، واحفظهم من كل ما يسؤهم يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا احفظهم بما تحفظ به عبادك الصالحين يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا تقبلهم بقبول حسن وأنبتهم نباتا حسنا، وأكفلنا إياهم كفالة الأنبياء والصالحين يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا أصرف عنا وعنهم السوء والفحشاء، واجعلنا وإياهم من عبادك المخلصين يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا أعنا على تنشئتهم على هدي كتابك وسنة نبيك محمد صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم ربنا هب لنا من أزواجنا وذرياتنا قرة أعين واجعلنا للمتقين إماما. اللهم ربنا اجمع بيننا وبين أزواجنا وذرياتنا وأرحامنا بالإلف والمودة والرحمة والتقى والعفاف، وأصلح ذات بيننا وبارك لنا في أيامنا يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا أهدنا إلى ما فيه صلاح ديننا ودنيانا يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا أهدنا واهد أبناءنا، وأشفنا وأشفي مرضانا، وارحمنا وارحم موتانا يا ارحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا تقبل منا انك انت السميع العليم وتب علينا انك انت التواب الرحيم. ربنا يتقبل منا ومنكم ان شاء الله. So brothers and sisters, before we make Janazah Salah for the absent brother Amir Barakat, he passed away last week. He was one of the prominent figures. All we know about him is good. This is our testimony on him, inshallah. So the least thing we're going to do for him, inshallah, to make Salat Janazah as the absent person. When somebody passed away, far away, this is Sunnah of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam. So it is authenticated over there. When the Najashi passed away, Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alayhi wa sallam established Salat al-Ghaib for him. So astawu, so make your rose, oaths, inshallah. Inshallah. So make sure, brother. 5 rows are odd number of rows. It has 4 takbirah, Salat al-Janazah. In the first one, just as a reminder, recite the Fatiha, then we make second takbirah. Then we recite the Salah, the grand Salah. اللهم صل على سيدنا محمد وعلى آله على سيدنا محمد كما صليت على سيدنا إبراهيم وعلى آل سيدنا إبراهيم all the way. The third takbirah, we make a dua for brother Amir with the intention set for him. The last takbirah, inshallah, we're going to make a dua for those who passed away, for the entire nation of Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. الله أكبر. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
السلام عليكم ورحمة الله.
So inshallah we're going to make a dua for him. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. كل من عليها فان ويبقى وجه ربك ذو الجلال والإكرام. اللهم ربنا كما نحسبك هونت على عبدك عامر بركات سكرات الموت فثبته عند السؤال على كلمة لا إله إلا الله محمد رسول الله صلى الله عليه وسلم. اللهم ربنا لا تخزه عند السؤال. اللهم ربنا كما ثبته بالقول الثابت في الحياة الدنيا فثبته بالقول الثابت في الآخرة يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا أحمل عبدك عامر بركات على عفوك ورضاك ولا تحمله على عدلك يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا أبني له بيتا في الجنة يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا أعلي مقامه في عليين مع الصديقين والشهداء وحسن أولئك رفيقا يا رب العالمين. اللهم ربنا أجعل قبره روضة من رياض الجنة ولا تجعله حفرة من حفر النار يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا إن كان محسنا فزد في إحسانه وإن كان مسيئا فتجاوز عن سيئاته. اللهم ربنا لا تحرمنا أجره ولا تفتنا بعده، واغفر لنا وله يا أرحم الراحمين. اللهم ربنا ارحم بأمواتنا وأموات المسلمين. اللهم ربنا إن كانوا محسنين فزد في إحسانهم، وإن كانوا مسيئين فتجاوز عن سيئاتهم. اللهم ربنا لا تحرمنا أجرهم ولا تفتنا بعدهم. اللهم ربنا لا تفتنا في ديننا ولا في دنيانا يا رب العالمين. لا حول ولا قوة إلا بالله. إنا لله وإنا إليه راجعون. اللهم ربنا تقبل عبدك عامر قبولا حسنا يا رب العالمين. تقبل الله منا ومنكم يا رب العالمين. So as you see, just the more reminder. So Brother Bryant in the khutbah repeated at least 5 times about the meeting in Salisbury. Brothers and sisters, especially parents, this is going to act like a ship start sailing in a very aggressive ocean. There is no way to survive unless you get on this ship. Islamic school. Give it your most attention, brothers and sisters. Participate in this effort. It's going to be for the sake of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. In the meantime, it's going to help us survive in this very diabolical system, inshallah. So it's going to be on يوم الأحد after صلاة الظهر. الاجتماع يا اخواننا حيكون يوم الأحد في المسجد بتاع صالحبوري بعد صلاة الظهر. So one more reminder. Today, inshallah, after Maghrib time, we're going to have Brother Muhammad. His wife, her dad passed away. She's going to receive his condolences, inshallah, in the masjid between Maghrib and Isha, inshallah. So try to participate also, inshallah. Nasallallahu lana wa lakum al-qabul. There's no meeting.